amazing people, students, and lovers of chemistry out there. I'm super excited to be here with you on this video where we get to begin an entirely new series, a series titled Physical and Chemical Changes. Okay, so this is the introductory part of that series where we get to see the basics of everything that has to do with physical and chemical changes. So I want you to stick around, stay tuned, and enjoy every bit of each video that will be coming in this series. Let's get into what we have for today's video. Alright now dear friends, you're welcome to this video where we commence the series officially on physical and chemical changes. So let's get right into what we're doing right now. Alright, so we have some learning objectives that we should have achieved by the end of today's video. Okay, so the first objective is that by the end of this video, you should be able to explain the difference between physical and chemical changes in matter and also provide examples of each of them. The second learning objective we have is that you should be able to provide real-life examples of physical and chemical changes in the matter that surrounds you. The third learning objective we have is that you should be able to identify the key characteristics of physical and chemical changes in matter. These and any more are the things that you will be able to do by the end of this video. So let's get right into what we're doing in this video. We're starting off by talking about what matter is. That's the foundational concept we want to get out of the way. By way of introduction, matter is anything that has mass and that takes up space. Two things have been spoken about: mass and then it takes up space. Now, it can exist in three different states, basically, okay? There are many states in which matter can exist, but we're looking at three basic states. It can exist as a solid, it can exist as a liquid, or it can exist as a gas. And it can also be composed of various elements and compounds. The next thing to note is that matter is all around us, okay? Matter surrounds you. From the air you're currently breathing, to the food you probably ate some moments ago, and even the objects that you may not be able to see, like the atoms and the molecules that make up those objects, they are still considered matter. If you're watching this video on a mobile device right now, maybe a laptop, a mobile phone, or whatever it is that enables you to interface with this video, that thing has mass and it occupies space, so it can also be considered as matter. So whenever we talk about the concept of matter, we are bringing two things to your attention. It must have mass and then it must occupy space. Anything that satisfies these two conditions can be called matter. I'm sure you're following every step of this video. So now that we have that out of the way, let's proceed to the next thing that we have on our list. Now, I want you to ponder on something. What differences can you notice when ice cream melts? Possibly you've had a cone of ice cream not so long ago, and if the place was a bit warm, you would notice that after a while, the solid cone of ice cream begins to become liquid. A change has occurred. Or when bread changes into crispy toast, when you put it in the toaster, or even when you slice an apple and you leave it on the kitchen table, or when a candle burns overnight, you would notice that a change occurs in each of these circumstances. In other words, there was a substance A that transformed into a new substance B. Now we want to see the concept of what exactly is happening behind the scenes. That brings us to the concept of changes in matter. Now, changes in matter speaks about the physical and the chemical transformations, that's the word, transformations, that take place when a substance undergoes a modification. These changes can occur in any of the three states of matter, either solid, liquid, or gas, and they can be brought about by a variety of factors, including changes in temperature, pressure, or chemical composition. Now, here is what I mean. On the screen right now, I have an example of a kettle containing some boiling water. Now, at the moment when that water was placed inside the kettle, it was liquid. But the moment the temperature began to change from, let's say, 20 degrees Celsius to the point where it became 100 degrees Celsius, it could no longer stay as a liquid. It changed into a gas. That is a change in matter that was effected by a change in temperature. So a change in matter is simply a physical or chemical transformation that occurs when a change in conditions like temperature, pressure, or chemical composition occurs. You can see that same thing happening over here to this cone of ice cream. The temperature shifted, and so the state of matter of the ice cream shifted or changed from solid to liquid. I'm sure you're seeing every step of what we're doing right now. That brings us to the physical changes in matter. Now, all the transformations that can occur as far as matter is concerned can be classified into two broad classes. We have the physical change, and then we have the chemical change in matter. Now, starting off with the physical change in matter is simply a transformation that involves a change in one or more physical properties of a substance. Now, these are properties that refer to things like shape, size, or state of matter without changing its chemical composition. So whenever a physical change occurs, the things that change or are altered are things like shape, how it looks, size, how big or small it was, and then state of matter. Was it a solid? Was it a liquid? Or was it a gas? These are the things that physical changes in matter alter. Now, unlike chemical changes, which involve the formation of a new substance, physical changes can often be reversed by changing the conditions that cause the change. Now, I'm going to give you a very good example. Let's say you have some water in liquid form. You heat the water and then some of it becomes a gas, steam. Now, if you take a lid and then you place it over the steam that is evaporating from the pot or whatever it is you're using to boil that water, you will discover that after some time, some water droplets will begin to form on that lid. In other words, a process called condensation has occurred, which changed the state of matter from gas back into liquid. Remember, at the point where you started boiling that water, it was liquid, and then when the water became very hot and began to boil, it became a gas. And in the process of using a lid to trap some of those steam from gas, it now returned back into liquid. So that's what we're trying to say, that a physical change in matter can often be reversed, unlike a chemical change in matter. I'm sure you're seeing how everything is playing out. If you're enjoying this video, please do well to like, share, and subscribe. Now, here are some characteristics of the physical change in matter. Characteristic number 1, no new substance is formed. One of the defining features of physical changes is that they do not result in the creation of entirely new substances. You can see over here, I have some ice cubes that have been placed on top each other. After a while, when the temperature becomes a bit warm, the ice cubes will begin to melt, and that process of melting will change it from solid into liquid. Now, even though the state of matter changed, it is still the same water. No new substance was formed. The same thing happens over here. I have some carrots. In the process of slicing the carrots, the size and the shape of the carrots have been altered, but a new substance was not formed because it's just a physical change. The same thing happens over here. Some water is being boiled, and then the state of matter changes from liquid to gas, but no new substance is formed. The second characteristic of physical change in matter is that there is a change in state. When we say change in state, it means from a solid it can become a liquid, and from a liquid it can become a gas. So from one state to the other is the alteration. Now this occurs when a substance transitions between solid, liquid, or gas states due to changes in temperature or pressure. That's the second characteristic of the physical change in matter. And then the third one is the change in appearance. Physical changes often involve alterations in the substance's appearance, texture, or shape. I'm sure you're enjoying every bit of what we're doing right here. Now that being said, let's check out some examples of physical changes. We have the example number 1, which is the transition or alteration from solid to liquid state without altering its composition. So over here I have some cubes, some ice cubes, and then after a while, when the temperature becomes warm, some liquid begins to get formed, right? So the change is a change from the solid state of matter into the liquid state. Now when that happens, a new substance is not formed even though the state of matter has changed. The second example we have is the example of some water boiling in an electric kettle. The transformation is occurring that makes a liquid to be changed into a gaseous state of matter through heat. Now even though the liquid is changed into a gas, no new substance is formed as well. I'm sure you're following. And then thirdly, we have the alteration of the shape of a can or a balloon without changing the materials that it is made of. So before the balloon was blown, it was deflated. When the balloon was blown up, then it became inflated. What changed? The size changed and the shape also changed, but then the materials that makes up the balloon did not change. So that's a physical change in matter. I'm sure you're seeing how everything is playing out. Alright, so that being said, brings us to the next thing we want to talk about, which is the chemical change in matter. The chemical change in matter are simply changes that involve a transition in the chemical composition of a substance, resulting in the formation of one or more new substances. Chemical changes are usually irreversible, and they involve the breaking and the forming of chemical bonds between atoms or molecules. So here is what we mean. During a chemical change, bonds between atoms and molecules are broken, and then new bonds are also formed. Now in the process of doing that, new substances are formed, and that is why one example of a chemical change is the process of frying an egg. You can see from this substance over here, it transitions to become an entirely new substance, which is this one over here. Now when this happens, it is usually irreversible, or the new substance that is formed cannot be reversed into the old substance that started the reaction. That's an example of a chemical change in matter. Let's proceed. Here are some characteristics of the chemical change in matter. Characteristic number 1 is that new substances are formed. New substances are formed due to the breaking and forming of chemical bonds between atoms and molecules. For instance, you can see some toast that I have over here. I have some toast over here, and this was made from some fresh bread that we have over here. Now by the process of putting it into a bread toaster, it transitioned from toast or from bread into toast over here. Now the process cannot be reversed because a new substance entirely has been formed. The next characteristic of chemical change is the characteristic of irreversibility. Irreversibility simply means it cannot be reversed or it cannot be taken back to the point where the reaction started from. So the original substances cannot be restored through simple physical processes. So for instance, we have some fried eggs over here in a pan. You cannot take those fried eggs and then use a normal process to return it back to the normal egg whites that you had before the frying process. I'm sure you understand what we're trying to say. And then the final one is the change in properties. Change in properties simply means alterations in color, odor, how it smells, taste, how it is perceived in the tongue, and even the production of a gas or a precipitate. So chemical changes are much more profound compared to physical changes. Whereas in physical changes, no new substances are formed. When we come to chemical changes, many more things are altered. So here are some examples of chemical changes that we have in our world today. Example number one is the process of baking a cake. Baking a cake, you start with substances like your sugar, your butter, and a host of other ingredients that go into the recipe. When you combine everything together and you go through the process of baking, you end up with an entirely new substance called a cake. And baking a cake involves a chemical reaction that occurs between ingredients. You have your sugar, you have your butter, you have your flour, and so many things being combined together to form something new called a cake. A new substance is formed. The next example we have is the breakdown of molecules into simpler substances in our body. Or for instance, now you have, let's say you have a plate of rice and then you eat it. After the process of eating that rice, it is converted from this substance called rice in your body into glucose, which is the unit for the storage of energy in your body. Now, for this to happen, a series of chemical changes have to occur, converting the food substance into glucose. This cannot be reversed because rice is different from glucose. Glucose is the new substance that is formed in your body. And then finally, we have the reaction of iron with oxygen in the presence of moisture. Moisture here simply refers to water. So when iron or metals are left in the atmosphere to the presence of oxygen or air in the presence of water, what happens is that a new substance begins to form, which is called rust. And it is a chemical change because a new substance is formed and it cannot be easily reversed. I'm sure you're enjoying every bit of this lesson. So we've come to the end of today's video. I'm sure you enjoyed every bit of what we talked about in it. Up next, we're going to be talking about the process of comparing physical and chemical changes. I'd like you to stay tuned till then. It's going to be uploaded shortly. Up until then, my name's David. It's been a pleasure engaging with you on this one. I'm the billionaire teacher who takes the mystery out of chemistry so you can make history. I look forward to seeing you in the next video where we compare chemical changes and physical changes. Until then, stay blessed.